Howdy YouTube, Matt back, and I have some unwanted house guests. Well, they're not really guests. They moved in uninvited. Carpenter bees, drilling holes in my garden fence posts, in my deck, my gazebo, pretty much everything they can find. So today we're gonna build some traps for those little buggers. Something that looks more inviting to them than the rest of my house, that they can move into, but not move out. The basic design of this bee trap is dirt simple. It's just a wooden box, 4 sides. It's all put together with butt joints, glue, a couple of brads, just because I didn't have enough clamps. The bees like to have a roof over their heads, and I happen to have this 2x8, I think it is, laying around. So I'm going to cut that up because it overhangs the box by a good amount if you cut it to the right length. The trick is the trap holes. I don't know if you can see this or not. Those holes are drilled at a 45-degree angle so that the bees, when they go in, they climb up inside the box. But once they get in there, they can't see the light from the hole where they came in. The only light they can see is this clear plastic bottle in the hole at the bottom. So after they crawl up here, they fly down through what passes for a funnel. It's just the cut off top of a water bottle, down into here, and the likelihood of them finding their way back out is pretty close to 0. So as you can see, I've got a couple of stacks of parts here. Let me walk you through how those came to be. The first step is to cut some 4.5-inch wide plywood strips. These are going to end up being the sides, front and back, and the bottom pieces of the bee trap. The exact dimension is not really critical, only that they all come out exactly the same. So set up your fence and leave it there while you cut enough strips to make however many traps you're going to make. The bottom pieces of the bee trap are supposed to be squares. I've already got the fence set up for the rip dimension, and so what it's real tempting to do is just take one of those strips, throw it in the cross-cut sled, and use the fence where it's set to cut a perfect square. Don't do it. It's not safe to have this cut-off piece trapped between the sled and the fence and the blade. It's a recipe for kickback. But this is exactly the dimension that I want. So how do we accomplish this? Well, what we need to do is we need to add a spacer block in here. I've got this board butted right up against the fence, right exactly where I want it. I'm going to leave it in place, and I'm going to loosen the fence and move it out. Now, if I put this spacer block in here, I can snug the fence back up, tighten it down, put a clamp on my block, and I know that I still have the piece I'm going to cut the same square distance from the fence. But now, as I push it forward, it clears my spacer, so I can cut this off freely without worry about it coming back and hitting me in the face. And of course, now that I've got the sled under here, I need to raise the blade a little bit so that I still have gullets clearing the workpiece. The longer of the 2 side pieces are supposed to be 6 inches long. Now again, it's not critical exactly what this dimension is, and I still need to use my spacer block so that my cutoffs aren't wedged in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the fence on 6 and a skinny 3/4. Should be close enough for jazz. The other 2 side pieces for the bee trap are whatever dimension you ended up with for the long sides, minus the thickness of the workpiece. And the easy way to do that is to just not move the fence and add yourself a second spacer. You now know that you've taken exactly the thickness of your plywood off of the dimension you're cutting. Now, once you're done at the table saw, you have a box that goes together dirt simply. The 2 long sides sit on the outside of the square bottom piece with a simple butt joint. The 2 other sides sit on top of the bottom piece, again, with a simple butt joint. And because we used a piece of the material as the spacer for the fence, this joint right here is perfectly flush. on this side over here, I can't even feel it. So that is going to glue up real nice. However, before we glue it, we need to do some drilling. So this contraption, and I think contraption is probably the right word for it, is so we can drill the 45-degree angle holes where the bees go into the trap. We need to drill a hole in the center towards one end of both sides and the front of the trap. We don't need to drill a hole in the back because the bee traps get mounted on posts or walls. The back is covered up. There's no way for a bee to get in there anyhow. These are 45-degree angles that I cut over on the chop saw. They're not real precise, but again, we're building bee traps here, not the Eiffel Tower, so what the heck. Cut two pieces, clamped them together to give me plenty of working surface to lean up against. Clamped the whole thing down to the drill press table so that it doesn't go anywhere. And I clamped a stop block in the back so that I can simply take one of these pieces, put it in here, have the corner of it drop down into the T-slot to hold the bottom of it, shove it up against the back, and I know I'm in the right spot and at the right angle to drill my hole. Now, two things. One, a twist bit is not the right drill bit for this. I should have a Forstner bit. Ideally, even a Brad point bit would probably be better, but it manages. What you will notice, though, is that the bit wants to deflect a little bit, just a little bit, when you start to drill the hole, because instead of contacting in the center, it's contacting on the side. So just, take a couple of bites out of it until the point of the bit gets caught in the wood, then you can ram it on home. While we're on the drill press, we also need to cut out a 2.5-inch hole in the bottom of the bee trap. This is where the cut-off water bottle will get inserted through and then stapled around the edge to make the funnel that the bee can see from the inside. Got a hole saw chucked up in the drill press, and I marked the first one of these things with an X so that I could get it exactly centered underneath the bit in the drill press. Then once it was there, I clamped a square and a piece of 2x4 in the back so that I have a nice slot. For the rest of them, I don't have to mark them and find the center. I can just stick them in there and start drilling. There isn't a specific size that I need for the tops, except that they need to overhang both sides and the front of the trap so that the openings are protected from rain and direct sun. I made them however far it is from the blade to the support for the wood on this side, just as a stop block so they all come out the same. All right, we are getting close to being ready to put these things together. I took my tops over to the drill press and I drilled 2 holes, left and right, which are going to be for this string that is used to hang the thing. They aren't probably all going to hang from a string like this. Some of them I'm going to screw right to the posts in the garden, but gives me the option either way. Last parts prep step is these water bottles. I got to cut the tops off of 5 of them to turn them into the funnels that go on the bottom of the bee traps. You want the entirety of the slanted part, and then you want about 1 inch of the flat part. We're going to snip that to make some flaps to staple it down. So get you some scissors or a knife or whatever works for you, and start cutting up your water bottles. Next step is to mount our funnel, as it were, into the bottom of the bee trap. I cut the top off the bottle, and then I went around and about every 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch or so, I cut a slit right down to where the angled part starts. And the way this works is you can shove the bottle in here, and then these parts that you cut become the flaps that you can tack down with your handy dandy stapler. And there you have it, the base of one bee trap. Okay, gang, home stretch. It is time to glue these things up and turn them into actual bee traps. I have here the front and back and the two sides for one trap. And the way this goes together is that it makes a box. And the only thing you have to watch is that the bees want to climb up when they go into the trap. So your holes need to be pointing down at the bench when you're assembling this whole thing. So just double check that you've got the orientation correct. And the shorter side pieces go in between the front and the back, so that when you're looking at the box top down, the hole inside of it is rectangular. It's wider than it is deep from my perspective. Now that's because ultimately we're going to take this bottom and we're going to drop it right into that hole. But for now, I just need to glue and/or brad so I can hold these things together, this box into, well, the box. Okay, once you've got the glue in there, I like to just put one clamp on each side to draw it together. Because of the way it's cut, it kind of naturally wants to go square. But ultimately, I don't have enough clamps to properly clamp up. I'm making 5 traps right now. So rather than wait, an hour for the glue to set up in between all of them, I'm just going to pin it together with some brads so I can recycle the clamps for the next one. With those 4 brads in, I can take the clamps off, and then I can get a few more brads down the side. And then once the box is put together, you can drop a little bit more glue in here. And slide in the bottom. There you go, 1 bee box. Still needs a lid, but I'm gonna put the other ones together and then do all the lids at one time. Final step, we're gonna take this, we're gonna glue it onto the lid. I'm not gonna bother to use any mechanical fasteners here because quite frankly, I don't have a mechanical fastener that is appropriate for this, this job. Just remember to line up the back, right? The part where you did not drill a bee hole flush with the roof, so that you get overhang over all of the bee entrances. Eyeball it or get your combo square and measure it if it bothers you. It won't matter to the bees. Set it on there and give it a good push. And now the reality is the weight of this box is probably enough pressure for that glue to hold well enough for this thing to stay together. But I am going to put a clamp or 2 on it. Okay, 1 in the clamps. I only have enough clamps to do 2 at a time, so this is going to take a little while. In the meantime, let's go back to the prototype, and I'll show you the very last step. That's attaching the actual bee trap. Now, the plans that I found online for these things had a real slick solution. They used a piece of garden hose in between here. If you've got the right sized hose and the right sized water bottles, these things will actually thread in here. And what that lets you do is thread on an empty one, catch a bunch of bees, unscrew it and cap it. And then of course, you don't have to worry about the bees coming after you. I didn't have a piece of hose that's the right size. And quite honestly, I'm gonna wait until the bees are quite dead to get them out of here. So this is just tape. I have electrical tape, which is pretty waterproof, pretty stretchy, grips real well. I just stuck a bottle on here and taped it on there. And then of course for the string, goes through the 2 holes we drilled. I just tied a knot so that it won't pull out. I made this nifty loop in the top here so that I can hang it, but you don't have to do that. And the end result is 1 bee trap. When I get all 6 of them done, We'll head outside, we'll hang them up, and hopefully we'll catch some bees. So here's the finished product installed and ready for use. It's pretty simple. I just hung this on an existing hook. Conventional wisdom says you should hang them as high as possible, and I'll probably do that for the rest of them, but this was easy, and I like easy. One note of caution, while these traps are sort of optimized for carpenter bees with the holes at an angles and the little roof over them, it will catch pretty much any kind of a bee. Now, most of them are pests anyway, right? Yellow jackets and hornets and other kind of wasps and stuff, they will all find their way in here, and I say good riddance to them. However, it will also catch honeybees. Now, we are blessed. We have a lot of honeybees around here, and I like it that way. So if you're going to put these up, keep an eye on them. If you get honeybees in there, let them out. Even if you have to let out some of the bees you were trying to catch in the process, you know, that's life. What are you going to do? But it takes a long time for them to die in here. So if you check it 2-3 times a day, odds are if you've caught some honeybees, you'll have plenty of time to get them out before any harm is done. Well, the guests for my new hotel are starting to arrive, and frankly, I don't want to be out here with them. So I'm going to call that an end. Questions, comments, leave them below. If you hit the subscribe button, you get first dibs on answers. And in the meantime, stay safe, YouTube. We'll see you soon.